So this story is going to be rather long, I think. So grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea or something, because we're gonna be here for a little while. So this is the story of how I achieved financial freedom at the age of 32. I've contemplated for a long time and thought a lot back and forth about when or if I want to share this story. A part of me somehow feels ashamed to share this story because I don't know how my friends and family would see me and would behave differently around me. Because there's always this misconception that financial freedom means you're rich. So if you tell people that, oh, you're financially free at such a young age, they might think differently of you and treat you differently. So for a long time, I really struggled with sharing this story, even though I know there's so much value in this story. But in the past couple of years, I've been on this growth journey and I realized that, you know what, life is short and it's such a silly game that nobody knows when this is gonna end. And in the grand scheme of things, I am just a particle in a desert of galaxies, if you get my drift. I'm insignificant in the grand scheme of things, is what I'm trying to say. So more and more, I'm starting to become more comfortable with the idea of sharing this story in the hopes of sharing the value in this story. And the message that I want to share with the world is that the rat race, materialistic society that we live in is not the only way to live. And this story of mine is one that can give people an insight as to how one might achieve financial independence and break out of this vicious cycle of making more money and spending more money on material things and impressing others, and it just doesn't end. So that's why I decided that it's time to share this story. So this new series is about my journey into financial freedom and things I've learned and me making tools on simplyfreely.com on my flavor of fire to help other people who wish to do the same and recognize what's enough in life and hopefully start living a more peaceful life and live a life that they never thought was possible. Now, before we begin, as you see, I have notes because it does involve the past 10 plus years of things that happened in my life. And I know I'm probably gonna forget stuff, even though I've written notes. I try my best to recount all the major things that happened in my life, but memory is not my forte. So I try my best. And if I forget something, I can talk about it in the future. So bear with me if there are holes in my story. This isn't a Hollywood story where I spent months writing, okay? So a couple of things to get out of the way before I start. One is that I am not an expert. I think it's very easy for people to assume that anyone with a YouTube channel talking about serious topics like personal finance, financial freedom, they must be an expert. He must know what he's doing. Honestly, I am still a student at heart. I am figuring out life as we speak. I am not an expert. I'm just some random guy that had gone through some stuff in my childhood, which caused me to be frugal and caused me to work super hard to save money, and then randomly stumbled upon this thing called FIRE movement. And the combination of all these factors allowed me to achieve financial freedom. Now, if you're new to the FIRE movement, at a very high level, it's based on the Trinity study, which a bunch of really smart professors and researchers looked at historical market data and determined that a retiree can safely withdraw 4% of the portfolio for at least a 30-year period without running out of money. That's a high level of what this whole FIRE movement is about. And it is certainly not a shortcut or a secret. It's not like, oh, I discover FIRE, therefore I reach financial independence. Nah. It's more of a framework to help you think about money in a different way, to recognize the value of money and how it can work for you to sustain one's lifestyle. And this whole FIRE movement is not new. It's not new technology. It's not a new discovery or anything. It's more of looking in past data to kind of get a better understanding of what the future might be like. It's certainly not a guarantee. And especially with the rise of AI and so much information is out there. So I highly encourage you to go do your own research and figure out what elements of this can you incorporate into your life so that it can help you create a more healthy relationship with your personal finance. Or if you're trying to achieve financial freedom and retire earlier than what our society has told you at the age of 65, 67, whatever it might be in your own country. And one more thing before we start, I have no intention of sharing my concrete numbers. I think it's very tempting to watch a video like this and be curious about numbers. But the reason why I don't want to share concrete numbers is because it doesn't help anyone but satisfy the curiosity and most likely trigger this unnecessary need to compare. I'm not a big fan of comparing, especially when it comes to personal finance, because it's so personal. Everyone have different needs, different circumstances, and times are different. There's just so many different things that makes this concrete number unhelpful. What I do plan to share is perhaps percentages maybe, but that'll be for the future. So in this video, you're not going to hear any concrete numbers, if any. And to be honest, with the amount of stuff that I'll be sharing on this new series, which is more personal finance focused, you can probably make a few educated guesses and assumptions and reconstruct the numbers that I have if you really want to know the numbers. But for the purpose of my messaging and my intentions, I would not share my numbers intentionally. And again, I just don't want people to compare. It's not helpful. If anything, I just want to share my message, my story, to inspire people to recognize enough, to see how FIRE movement and this way of thinking about money can help them achieve a peaceful life. And if early retirement is what you want, this can potentially help you with that too. So having said that, let's start with some background information about my life. Right off the bat, I just want to say that I didn't come from wealth. My parents made a lot of poor choices in life, which led me to grow up in a very traumatic, unstable, turbulent kind of childhood. And honestly, looking back, I was destined to fail. There was just no way that I would have succeeded in life. I look back and I always thought there was just no way. And I'm sharing this not to criticize my parents. It's a whole can of worms on its own. But I'm sharing this because I want to let people know that no matter what kind of circumstances and situation you're in, you can climb out of it and it is possible. And you're going to see how this played a role in the earlier, I guess, stages of my FIRE journey. So the story really starts when we moved to Calgary. We moved around a lot, like living in places for like few months at a time. And that was something that I grew up with. And during that time, I hung out with the wrong people. I skipped classes as a kid. Like I didn't do well in school. But when we moved to Calgary, that really triggered me to take matters into my own hands, because I was just a kid. And one day I was just told like, okay, we gotta move and you can't tell anyone. And I didn't realize how traumatizing that is for a kid. But that's what sparked this fire in me. I knew that in order to get out of this bad situation, I need to make money. I need to hustle. So when we moved to Calgary, I started doing a couple of things, some healthy, some unhealthy. An unhealthy behavior that I developed was locking myself in the room and not coming out other than to eat. I wouldn't watch TV in the living room. It was just my room and my computer. It allowed me to explore the world of the internet. And that's when I started becoming really fascinated about coding. Back then, there was this thing called Calgary Planet. It's kind of like if you heard of like Asian Avenue. It was the OG of Facebook. And in a way, it was more flexible because you get to code your own page, make your own theme. So I started doing a lot of that and also started learning about all these different things like Flash. Geez, I sound so old. I don't know if you've heard of Flash before, but it's like this technology back in the days that you can create animations on the website. So I learned how to do that on my own. And the other thing is like I complete 180 changed because I recognized that I need to take matters into my own hands. So coming from not the best grades in class, I had to hustle to get my grades back on track. Now in Calgary, some classes like math are divided into two different levels. In order for you to get into university, you need to be in the higher level. So there's like math pure, math applied. So I had to go to summer school to upgrade from the applied to the pure because my grades were just horrible from, skipping classes and stuff. There were a lot of things that I had to do in the early times when I was in Calgary to get my academics back on track. While other kids are enjoying their summer holidays with their parents or whatever, I went to summer school. I hustled. I got my grades back on track. And then at the later years of my high school, I started working at various jobs. Worked at this alcohol-free karaoke bar, worked at a local radio station as a part-time DJ, worked out as a merchandiser, all sorts of random things. And then another thing that I learned during this time was what stocks are. So my dad at the time came to me one day. He doesn't speak or read or understand English at all, and he wanted to buy stocks. So he asked me to learn how to buy stocks and help him purchase those stocks on his account. So I learned how to buy stocks, what it means to trade stocks. But keep in mind, I don't have my own trading account because I wasn't, 18 yet, and I didn't even think about buying stocks. It's just something that he asked me to do. Asian parents, they ask you to do things because they don't do English. So that was the knowledge I had about stocks. So after high school, I got into university. But here's a fun fact. I didn't go to university for computer science. I actually went to university for accounting. In Asian household, there's always this misconception of you either have to do engineering or doctor or accounting kind of thing. So it's you're just naturally drawn towards those options because let's face it, when we're 18, choosing a path in university to focus on is hard because we don't know what the hell we want to do in life, let alone picking something that we want to do for the rest of our life. So I chose accounting because I thought, okay, well, it's something that they always talk about. And I thought it was all about math, which I really liked because that's one of the things that I did the best in school. So I'm like, okay, yeah, accounting. Just numbers. Boy, was I wrong. I hated it. So then how did I get from accounting to computer science? Because clearly I worked as a software engineer. So this is something that I don't think I've ever shared, but I actually got kicked out of the accounting faculty, the business faculty. So the first year of university, I wasn't doing very well because of family and personal stuff. Story for other time, it's not important. But yeah, I was just not doing well. So I didn't do as well in school as I did. And because accounting was not so much numbers, especially first year, it was all about balance sheets, business laws, regulations, things that don't really seem mathy. It's very businessy. So I wasn't having a lot of fun and that contributed to it. So I got a D twice, which the university wouldn't allow me to take the third time because I think I needed a C or higher at that point in time. I forgot what the GPA equivalent was, but that was the state of things. So then I'm like, okay, what are my options? So I thought, okay, well, I can change faculties and maintain the business classes that I did take as a minor. And then, so I'm like, what other faculties are there that I might be interested in? And then I do remember I really enjoyed programming in high school and I like coding. So I'm like, okay, let's try a computer science degree. So then I switched faculties to do a computer science degree. And then that's when my fire lit up again. I think something in me just turned and like, okay, I made a mistake in the first year. This is the time to hustle. So my grade just went straight back up. I did really well, partially because I was really enjoying programming and computer science. And also because I realized I can't fail. I remember why I hustled in the first place, because I need to get out of the bad family situation. I can't fail. So I worked so hard throughout my entire university career. Throughout the whole university time, I worked at 3 different part-time jobs along with full course load. The way I optimized my schedule was I put all the classes in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it would be from morning to nighttime. And then it was just nonstop. And then if there were breaks in between, then I would do assignments and study, whatever. And then Tuesday, Thursday, I would work at different part-time jobs in the morning and then at night. And then same with Saturday and Sunday. And I rarely ever got any free time, so to speak. And if I did, then I'll hang out with friends. That's why my friends in university knew that I rarely attend things because I'm busy all the time. But this really paid dividends because I was able to graduate and pay off my entire student loan. Oh, and that's the other thing. I did use student loans and applied for scholarships to support my education, not from my family. It's another thing that I'm really proud of. And it's another example that I didn't come from wealthy family of any kind. I supported my own education. I worked my way through. So after I graduated, I got my first full-time software engineering job at a local startup. They were kind of startup and then a big company bought them, but it was my first full-time software engineering, software developer job. And I worked there for about, I think, a year and a half. At the beginning, maybe a few months into my job there, after passing probation, I saw this advertisement for a pre-construction condo downtown in Calgary. So then I thought, this is such a good opportunity for me to get out. Keep in mind, my entire goal is to get out of that bad situation. So then I thought, okay, this is my way out. So at that time, I didn't have enough money for the down payment. I kind of did some naive napkin math and I thought, okay, this condo builder allowed for putting down 5% down on the day you sign the contract. And then within a certain amount of time, you put another 5. And then when it finishes building, then you can put the rest of the 10% down payment. So then I'm like, okay, well, I have enough for the first 5. I can work to save for the next 5, and then I'll figure it out for when the condo finishes building in 2 years or something, for the rest of the 10. That works out. Absolute crazy idea. It's not something that the me today would do. It's so much risk. Like, what was I thinking? I remember telling my friend, I'm like, one day, like we were having dinner, I'm like, yeah, I put down payment on a condo. And they're like, what? Come again? Yeah, now I understand the reaction. It's like, ooh, that's risky. That's really risky. I didn't even know what I got into, to be honest, because I remember going to the pre-construction site of the day of opening, and I thought you just show up and you can buy a unit for the advertised starting price. But then when we got there, it was like huge lineup already, because apparently this is what pre-construction sales are like. You know, you have to line up early the night before to get the best deal, because the advertised price that you see in the newspaper, it's never that price. That's like one unit at the lowest level floor, and then every floor you go up requires an additional couple $1,000s or something. So by the time we got there, like I was left with like a higher floor that's like more expensive, but I still did it anyways because I was so determined to get out. I'm glad it turned out to be a good decision, as you'll see. So, and then I worked at this first job for about 1.5 years. And then I got put onto a new team with a new manager who I just didn't get along. So then I found a different job because I just wasn't happy there anymore. So I found another job at a startup, and this was the start of my life. I really think this was the point that started my entire life the way it is now. So when I got this new job startup, it was like maybe 5 people in the entire company, and I was the only developer, if I remember correctly. And it was not a very fun environment. Like at the previous job, we hung out, we had lunch together. This job was in a room, no windows. You have lunch at your desk, you talk to no one, you do your job. And it was just very miserable. And at the same time, I fell in love with a guy and I had my heart broken. So it was a very bad period. And then more family drama that I just couldn't handle at that time at all. Like any other time in my life, fine, I'll deal with it. Not that time. So then that was the trigger. I lost it. I completely lost it. I was even on some medication to help me cope with the mental issues that I had. I knew it then. I need to do something. So I dropped everything. I literally dropped everything, quit my job, and decided to go volunteer in Kenya. To this day, it is still the best decision in my entire life. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I actually made a video about this specific sabbatical of mine and how it changed the course of my life. I'll put a link somewhere. I am really proud of this video and sharing that story because it really gave me a glimpse of what life can be. And it's really the start of this whole simple living journey of mine, recognizing what's enough, life, happiness. It's not materialism, it's not capitalism. There's so much out there. So watch it. I'm very proud of this video. So anyway, so I did that. And then after volunteering a month in Kenya, I decided to just backpack around Europe, which gave me even more insights into life and what life can be outside of this North America bubble. But then at the end of it, I ran out of money because I wasn't making any money during this time. And then at the back of my head, I knew there was this remaining 10% that I have to finish paying when the condo is finished building in Calgary. So I'm like, okay, I gotta get a job. I need to start applying. So I applied for all sorts of jobs anywhere I can find. So I applied to Berlin, London, I think, Toronto, some in the States, and just sent out application everywhere. And then there were 2 companies that got back to me. One was in Berlin, one was in Toronto. The Berlin company actually didn't pay as well well. And their reasoning was that the living expenses, cost of living in Berlin was cheaper. So then I took the job in Toronto because they also helped me with my moving expenses. Not everything, but I think it was like $2,000 of moving expense if I stayed with the company for at least a year or something. So then I moved to Toronto. When I got to Toronto, I found a place to rent, which was this place. So at first I started renting this place when I moved to Toronto, how many years ago now? Almost 12 years ago. That was my first glimpse of how hustle culture is like in Toronto. I was expecting to come here, view this unit and, decide along with other units. There was no time for that. Like when I got here, there was another person that came after me and they were straight up to the landlord lady already with like, okay, we can offer you a check for this amount. I'm like, whoa, hold your horses. I was here first. I didn't say no. So it was right then and there, I knew like the competition's insane. So I'm like, I'll just get this. I like this place. It's nice. It's cozy. It's downtown, convenient. So I started renting this place. And then after a year of renting this place, my landlord came to me and said, so I'm thinking of selling this place. So you're going to have to move out in X amount of months. And then I'm like, okay, have you found a buyer? Because at that time, coincidentally, it was around the same time as when the Calgary condo, remember the Calgary condo? That's when I was right about to finish constructing and I was about to take possession of that. So then the timing worked out perfectly. I was able to sell that condo and then use whatever money that I was able to get selling that condo, because I don't live in Calgary anymore. I gotta sell it or rent it out. So I'm like, I'll sell it and then use that amount of money as a down payment for this condo. And this is how like that dumb decision that I made back then, super foolish one to like put down payment onto a pre-construction condo, didn't know what I was getting myself into. And then I was able to in a way trade up to this condo. So I got really lucky there. So then throughout this entire time of working at that job in Toronto, that first job in Toronto, I still had no concept of like what money does for you, what can money do for you. All I knew is that I'm frugal, I'm continue to be frugal, make more money, continue to work hard, climb that corporate ladder. And then until one day, I was having lunch with a group of people at that job. And then one of the guys there, he's older. And then he was talking something about his investment portfolio, mutual funds and stuff, and how it returned him X amount of percent in that last year alone. And he was talking about some companies. And then I thought, maybe I should start doing that too. Because I just put all my money in a savings account. And to be fair, my reasoning for that was because remember that 10% I have to put for the condo in Calgary, the last 10% that I put. So like my thinking was always like, okay, put it in the savings account because I need to pay that 10%. And then after that whole thing went through, I started just putting money into savings accounts because that's what I did. So at that point, my money was just in my savings account, and it wasn't a lot because I emptied it to have to pay the Calgary condo and then trade up for this. And then at that time, I was starting to accumulate again. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna open a trading account. I'm gonna start investing like this guy because putting it in a savings account only earns me like 1% or something. So might as well do that. So that's how I started doing dollar cost average. This is another investment term that you might hear a lot. Essentially, you're just like buying more into the stock market, either through funds or ETFs every month or so when you have extra money, and you just like dollar cost average, learn about it. And during this time, I actually got into this fund that charged a very high fee. I didn't know at the time. I just started investing. I didn't know what the hell these are. And then I realized that it wasn't performing well because like the fees were insane. It was like 2-3%, and then it wasn't doing well. So then I did some more research, learn about this fee, MER. So I switched to a different fund with a lower fee, and I just kept doing that. And keep in mind, at this time, I still wasn't aware of the FIRE movement. I think around this time is when the FIRE movement just really started. And also I knew nothing about tax optimization. Like what's an RRSP? What's a tax-free savings account? Like I didn't think about any of these like tax optimizations things anyways. I was still young. I was still naive. I was starting. So after about 2 years or so with this company, I wasn't happy. It was a lot of stress. So then I found a different job. And this is another pivotal moment. Like looking back, this is one of those things where I'm like, oh, I should have done this. So when I was looking for jobs, I had a decision between this job that I actually went to and another company called Shopify. Shopify, if you've never heard of them, they're a big Canadian tech company and they've done really well. So had I gone to Shopify, that was like right before they IPO'd. So I would have got equities that would have really changed the course of my life, looking back. But it is what it is. You know, like in life, you win some, you lose some, you miss out on a lot, but it is what it is. Oh, and talk about equity, this company that I worked for the 2 years, I didn't even exercise my options as I didn't know anything about that stuff. Yeah, looking back, you live and you learn. So this new company I worked for 4 years, which is the longest I've ever worked for at a single company because I was put onto a really great team with a really great manager who understood my strength and weakness and really gave me opportunities to succeed. And he helped me grow as a software engineer, as an individual, and gave me so many opportunities. So I was so happy working there. So during this time, it was very stable. I was working, hustling, saving aggressively because that's what I learned to do. Dollar cost average, save all the money and put it all into the stock market through funds. And then one day I discovered FIRE. I don't remember the exact website or media that I discovered the FIRE movement. I think it was when I was doing research to learn more about tax optimizations, how to save more money, how to make more money. And then I discovered this thing called FIRE movement. So that's when there was really like a spot on the map with a pin on it. Because this entire time, I was just aggressively saving, investing, and learning more about, you know, these tax advantage accounts, retirement accounts, and all these stuff. But I didn't know where I was going. There was no goal. It was just done out of necessity and this financial insecurity of, you know, growing up. And I knew that I need money to get out of a bad situation. And money is something that helps me prevent getting into a bad situation. So then I just kept aggressively saving. But FIRE really put that spot on the map for me because it allowed me to understand there is a goal, there is an amount that I should save up to, and that retiring early is an option. Because up until that point, I didn't recognize that it's possible to stop working. I was just gonna work for the rest of my life and keep on saving for the rest of my life blindly for I don't know what, for I guess financial security. Because of the 4% rule, I was able to figure out my FIRE number. So then that became the goal. And after that, I doubled down hard. I learned about like RRSP, DPSP, how to like efficiently, you know, put money into these accounts on TFSA. And if you're in the States, these are like your 401k, Roth IRA, traditional IRA, and stuff like that. So then I doubled down on every angle that I could to optimize for this and became even more frugal to get to that goal faster. And I think it's because of this mindset that also played a part in my later years of burnout because I was just so hustling. I was climbing that ladder, working hard to show myself that I deserve a higher pay. So after 4 years of working in that company, my manager left. The company took a really different turn. The culture changed dramatically and it wasn't the environment that I enjoyed anymore. So then I decided to look for a different job. And that's when I started going this downward spiral of jumping from job to job to job, only to realize that grass is not greener. When you're working at a company that you're not happy with, you always have this tendency to feel like the grass is greener on the other side, that other companies are better because on the outside it's better, I guess. But then, you know, I realized that it wasn't the case. You're literally trading one problem for another. Every company has its own poop and you're gonna get poop everywhere. So that's what I learned the hard way. So I just went from job to job to job. But throughout this entire time, I was still very aggressively saving towards my FIRE number. And then finally, after jumping through a few jobs, it was the pandemic. And then everything together combined, I was just broke. And I completely burnt out. And chances are you've seen that video. It's the most viewed video in my channel where many of you subscribed because of that video. So I completely burnt out. And it was like never before. I had so much health issues around that time that I'm just like, you know what? I need to get out. I can't. Like I need to get out. So I decided that I'm gonna quit because, you know, like in a way I have some financial security because I've been saving aggressively. So I got out, and the thinking at that time was I had about 1 year of living expenses saved up to contribute to my RRSP in the New Year's. Thank goodness I didn't do that yet. So I had money to sustain myself for about a year. That's what I did. At that point, I was just gonna quit and take a break and let my health recover and then figure out. Because at that time, finding a tech job was not hard. There were plenty of jobs everywhere in demand. I'm not in fear of not finding a job in the future. So I quit. That's how I unexpectedly achieved my financial independence. But here's the thing. I didn't know at the time that it was gonna work out because I haven't reached my FIRE number yet. According to my calculations at that time, I still had to work for a few more years. And that whole time was just to like, let's take a break and recover first and then get back into the hustle. But then after the period of the year and I felt better, I took a look at my numbers and I go, wait a minute, this is working. This actually is working. Somehow it's working. And that's how I unexpectedly reached my financial independence. And it's so anticlimactic. You know, when you're striving towards a goal and at the end of the goal, you celebrate and there's just gonna be whole ordeal and celebration and all that stuff. It wasn't for me. Like I never got that chance to be super dramatic about quitting, leaving the rat race. It just somehow continued to work after that burnout break period. So that is the story of how I reached financial independence. None of this happened overnight. There's no hack, there's no secret, there's no shortcut. All the information is publicly available. It certainly required a lot of hustle, hard work, and aggressive savings to build this nest egg that you can potentially live off of. At the end of the day, achieving financial freedom is actually very simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. Many people in this materialistic capitalistic society have a lot of wants. They want this car, they want a bigger house, they want this product, they want this new phone, they want this new dress, they want more and more and more. The only way to sustain that type of mentality and lifestyle, you're gonna have to do either having less wants or make more money than your wants. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that. If they're happy doing that and living that type of lifestyle, by all means. But the issue with that is they're gonna continue have to be in this rat race. And that is the trade-off. Now, the magic of simple living and why I am a big advocate of living a simple life, one of the reasons, is when you can have way less wants than the average person, but work way harder than the average person. And when these two intersect, that's when you can save the maximum amount of money and then use that to invest. And by the principle of the FIRE movement, this money can then generate income in the stock market for you to sustain your living. And that's how one might get out of the rat race. And the sooner you recognize this very simple idea, the longer you have time on your side to help you compound your investments. And that's when early retirement, early financial freedom happens. If you look at my story, I really didn't start aggressively saving and investing until a few years after I got to Toronto. So that would be, let's say 9-10 years. So it took me 9-10 years to build that. And of course, there are certain things that can be seen as luck, such as the pre-construction condo that I naively got into in Calgary, the bull market that happened during that time that I was building my investment portfolio. So these are all luck, but I do want to talk more about this in part 3 of this Leaving the Rat Race series. And I want to drill down into all these different variables that helped me achieve financial freedom so that you can put into perspective all the things that you might need to do or to think differently to help you achieve financial freedom. And I'll also be going through the FIRE calculator that I made on simplyfreely.com. So stay tuned for that. But I'm thinking next video, I'm gonna take a break from this very heavy finance focused topics and talk a little bit more about simple living mindset. As much as finance is important, I think simple living and financial freedom have this very interconnected dynamic that is very important in my flavor of achieving financial freedom. And there are so much benefits in simple living mentality that I wanna share on this channel as well. So to wrap up this video, please don't compare. I know it's very interesting to hear other people's numbers, but know that it doesn't matter. We don't know their circumstances. We don't know their needs. What matters is how much you need, how much you're saving, what your goal is to save, what the lifestyle you want to be, and save towards that lifestyle. and focus on your journey.